The spaceship landed on the dusty surface of planet Kelthera 9. The planet had no life, no water, and no air that humans could breathe. But it had something more valuable than gold or diamonds. It had the Vault of Ancestors. Doyen stepped out of the ship wearing his spacesuit. He was a human engineer, 35 years old, with short black hair and tired eyes. He had worked on military bases for 10 years before joining this archaeological team. He liked fixing things. He liked machines that made sense. The vault entrance stood before them like a mountain made of dark metal. It was taller than any building Doyen had ever seen. The door itself was covered in patterns that hurt his eyes when he looked at them too long. And scattered across the surface were exactly 1,000 keyholes. Each keyhole was different. Some were tiny, some were large, some glowed with strange colors. "Beautiful, is it not?" a voice said through the radio. The voice belonged to Vexathor, the team leader. Vexathor was not human. He looked like a giant insect standing on 2 legs with 4 arms and eyes that could see colors humans could not even imagine. His species lived for 500 years. Vexathor himself was 412 years old. "It's big," Doyen said. He was not good at saying fancy words. Vexathor made a clicking sound that meant he was amused. "This door has protected the knowledge of the first civilization for 50,000 years. Every species that has tried to open it has failed. We have been studying it for 40 years. So far, we have successfully decoded 147 keys." "How many more to go?" Doyen asked. 853, Vexathor replied. "At our current rate, we estimate it will take another 300 to 400 years to open the door." Doyen stopped walking. 400 years? That's insane. Another voice came through the radio. This one was female and human. "Doyen, please don't start," Hyejin said. She was the team's linguist, the person who studied ancient languages. She was also Doyen's friend and the person who usually had to explain why he said rude things. "I'm just saying," Doyen continued. 400 years is a long time to open one door. The first civilization was the most advanced species to ever exist. Vexathor explained with the patience of someone who had given this speech many times before. They built this vault to protect their knowledge. Each key requires a specific crystal that vibrates at a unique quantum frequency. We must find each crystal, grow it in our laboratory, tune it precisely, and then test it in the correct keyhole. This is delicate work. It cannot be rushed. The team walked into the base camp that had been set up near the vault. It was a collection of small buildings connected by tunnels. Inside, other members of the team were working. Doyen counted 12 different species. Some looked almost human. Others were blobs of energy floating in containment fields. One looked like a talking cloud. Kiltera, the team's mathematician, was one of the energy beings. She floated in her containment field, patterns of light shifting inside her body. "Welcome, Doyen," she said. Her voice sounded like music. "Have you come to appreciate the elegance of our work?" "I've come to do my job," Doyen said. "Where do you need me?" For 3 weeks, Doyen worked on maintaining the camp's equipment. He fixed air recyclers, repaired drill machines, and calibrated sensors. It was boring work, but he did it well because boring work was still important work. During the day, he watched the other scientists work on the door. They would spend hours examining a single keyhole through microscopes. They would run calculations on computers for days. They would argue about theories in languages Doyen did not understand. Every night, Hyejin would have dinner with him in the human section of the camp. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "I'm fine," Doyen said, eating his reheated rice and kimchi. "Just feels weird being here. Everyone else is so smart. I just fix things." "You're smart too," Hyejin said. "You just think differently. Your military training taught you to solve problems fast. Their academic training taught them to solve problems carefully. Both are valuable." "Maybe," Doyen said, but he did not sound convinced. On the 21st day, something bad happened. The supply ship that was supposed to bring food, oxygen, and equipment had broken down. It would take 6 months to repair it and return. The team had a choice. They could put everyone except 2 people into sleep pods and wait, or they could all stay awake but use up their supplies in 2 months. Vexathor called a meeting. "We must put most of the team into stasis," he announced. "We will keep 2 people awake to maintain the base and continue light research. This is unfortunate but necessary." Or, Doyen said, "We could just open the door now." The entire room went silent. 12 different species all turned to look at him. Some looked shocked. Some looked angry. Vexthor's 4 eyes blinked one at a time. "Excuse me?" Vexthor said slowly. "Open the door," Doyen repeated. "We don't have 400 years. We might not even have 2 months if something else breaks down, so let's open it now." "That is impossible," Kiltara said. Her light patterns turned red. "We need 853 more keys." "What if we don't?" Doyen asked. "This is not a simple lock on a bathroom door," Vexthor said. His voice was sharp now. "This is a security system designed by the most advanced civilization in galactic history. You cannot simply force it open. The door is connected to support beams throughout the entire mountain. If we damage it, the whole structure could collapse. We would lose everything, including our lives." "I'm not saying we should blow it up," Doyen said. "I'm saying maybe there's another way." "There is no other way," Vexthor said firmly. 50,000 years of scholarship from hundreds of species all agree on this. The door requires 1,000 keys. "This is not a debate." Hyejin touched Doyen's arm. "Maybe we should go," she whispered. Doyen wanted to argue more, but he saw the look on everyone's face. They thought he was stupid. They thought humans were primitive. Maybe they were right. That night Doyen could not sleep. The other humans had already gone into the sleep pods to save oxygen. Only he and Hyejin remained awake. She was sleeping now, but Doyen's mind kept working. He put on his spacesuit and walked out to the vault. The giant door stood in the light of Kelthera 9's 3 moons. Doyen turned on his helmet's light and walked close to the surface. He spent hours looking at the door. He was not looking at the keyholes like the scientists did. He was looking at the structure. He was looking at how the door was built. The keyholes were not spread evenly across the surface. Most of them were concentrated in the center and upper right area, but the hinges, the big metal pieces that the door would swing on, were on the left side. That meant all the weight of the door pushed down on the left, but all the locks were on the right. That was strange. Doyen had built many doors in his military days. He had built doors for bunkers, for ships, for secure facilities. A good door had locks spread evenly. That way, the force was distributed. This door had all its locks in one place, unless the locks were not meant to hold the door closed. Doyen got down on his knees and looked at the bottom left corner of the door. He brushed away 50,000 years of dust. There, almost hidden, was a single large hinge mechanism. It looked different from the decorative hinges up above. This one looked functional. This one looked load-bearing. He pressed his hand against the door, right next to the hinge. He pushed gently. The door did not move. He pushed harder. Still nothing. But he noticed something. The metal around the hinge was slightly warmer than the rest of the door. That meant energy was flowing through it. That meant it was active. That meant it was locked. But it was only one lock, not 1,000. Just one. Doyen stood up and looked at all those keyholes again. A crazy thought entered his mind. What if the 1,000 keyholes were not the real security? What if they were a test? A test to see if you were smart enough to ignore them? He walked back to base. His heart was beating fast. He had an idea. It was probably a stupid idea, but it was an idea. The next morning he found Hyejin. "I need to show you something," he said. They went to the door together. Doyen explained everything he had noticed. The weight distribution, the hinge mechanism, the thermal signature. Hyejin listened carefully. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "That's either brilliant or insane." "Could be both," Doyen admitted. "If you're wrong, we could trigger a collapse. We could die. If I'm right, we open the door today instead of in 400 years. Hyejin looked at the door, then at Doyen, then at the door again. "We need to tell Vexthor." They requested a meeting. Vexthor looked annoyed. He was in the middle of delicate calculations. "What is it?" he asked. Doyen explained his theory. He showed his data. He presented his evidence. When he finished, Vexthor's 4 eyes all stared at him in silence. "No," Vexthor said finally. "But, no, this is not a discussion. 50,000 years of accumulated knowledge cannot be dismissed by one human's guess. You have no training in ancient civilizations. You have no understanding of quantum cryptography. You are a maintenance worker, not a scientist. Sometimes a fresh perspective helps, Hyejin said quietly. Sometimes ignorance is just ignorance, Vexthor replied. I will not risk this entire mission on a theory that contradicts everything we know. We will proceed with stasis. This conversation is over. Doyun left the meeting angry, but he was not surprised. Nobody had listened to him his whole life. Why would they start now? That night, everyone entered the sleep pods. Everyone except Doyun and one other researcher who would stay awake to monitor the base. Hyejin squeezed his hand before entering her pod. Don't do anything stupid, she said. I never do, Doyun lied. He waited 6 hours until he was sure the other researcher was busy in the laboratory. Then he put on his spacesuit and walked to the vault. He stood in front of that massive door. He looked at those 1,000 keyholes, each one promising to take years of study. Then he looked at the single hinge at the bottom left. Sorry, Vexthor, he said quietly, but 400 years is too long. Doyun took 3 steps back. He had been a soldier before he was an engineer. He knew how to kick down a door. You aimed for the weakest point. You used your whole body weight. You did not hesitate. He ran forward and delivered one powerful kick to the lower left corner, right next to the hinge mechanism. The sound was like thunder. The metal rang like a giant bell. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Doyun heard a click. Then another. Then 1,000 clicks all at once. Every single keyhole on the door lit up with bright blue light. The light spread across the surface in patterns. The ground shook. And then, slowly, the ancient door began to swing open. Alarms started screaming in the base. Lights flashed everywhere. Doyun heard voices shouting on the radio. People were waking up from their sleep pods early, confused and scared. Doyun stood there, watching the door open, and thought, I'm either about to become a hero or a dead man. Maybe both. The door stopped moving when it was halfway open. A gap 10 meters wide now separated the ancient door from its frame. Cool air rushed out from inside the vault, air that had been sealed away for 50,000 years. Doyun stood frozen, his heart hammering in his chest. The alarms were still screaming. Through his helmet radio, he could hear panicked voices shouting over each other. Structural integrity. Massive energy spike. Who authorized? Then one voice cut through all the others. Doyun! It was Vexithor, and he sounded angrier than Doyun had ever heard anyone sound before. What have you done? Before Doyun could answer, Hyejin's voice came through. Wait, everyone stop. Look at your sensors. The structure is stable. The vault is not collapsing. There was silence as people checked their instruments. Then Kiltara spoke, her musical voice filled with shock. She is correct. All support beams are intact. The energy readings are stabilizing. The door has opened without triggering any defensive systems. Impossible, Vexthor whispered. Doyun finally found his voice. Sir, I can explain. You will do more than explain, Vexithor interrupted. You will, he stopped. Through Doyun's helmet camera, everyone could see what he was seeing. There was light coming from inside the vault. Not the harsh white light of their equipment, but a soft golden glow. 15 minutes later, the entire team stood in front of the open door. They had rushed out of the base, some still in their sleeping clothes under their spacesuits. Everyone stared at the opening in shock. Vexthor approached Doyun. The old scholar's forearms were trembling. You kicked it, he said slowly. You kicked a 50,000-year-old door that has resisted every attempt to open it, and it just opened. Yes, sir, Doyun said. He waited to be yelled at or fired or maybe arrested. Instead, Vexithor made a strange sound like air leaking from a balloon. 40 years, he said. 40 years I have spent studying this door, calculating frequencies, growing crystals, testing theories, and you kicked it. I'm sorry, sir. But stop apologizing and show me how you knew this would work, Vexthor said sharply. Doyun explained again about the weight distribution, the hinge mechanism, the thermal signature. This time, with the door open, other team members checked his observations. They pulled up their sensor data. They ran calculations. He is right, Kiltara said, her light patterns shifting through colors Doyun had never seen before. The keyhole system was drawing power but not actually engaging any locks. It was decorative. The real locking mechanism was that single hinge, which was designed to disengage from a specific impact force to a specific location. But that makes no sense, said Taman, one of the other human researchers who specialized in structural engineering. Why build 1,000 fake locks? Because it was a test, Hyejin said softly. Everyone turned to look at her. She was staring at the open doorway with wide eyes. It was testing whether we were smart enough to see past the obvious. Absurd, Vexthor said. The first civilization would not play games with... He stopped. Oh, what? Doyen asked. Vexthor pointed one of his forearms at the doorway. There is writing inside. They all moved closer. Just inside the threshold, carved into the metal in letters that glowed with that golden light, were words in the language of the first civilization. Hyejin immediately pulled out her translation device and began working. 5 minutes later, she read aloud, "If you spent eternity unlocking 1,000 keys, you have already failed our test. Wisdom knows when to abandon complexity for simplicity. The worthiest inheritors are those who act." Nobody spoke. The words hung in the air like an accusation. Finally, Vexthor said quietly, "We failed. For 50,000 years, every species that came here failed. We saw a complicated problem and assumed it needed a complicated solution." "But humans are young," Kiltara said thoughtfully. "You do not have 50,000 years of academic tradition telling you how things must be done. You saw a door and you applied door logic." "I wouldn't say I applied logic exactly," Doyen admitted. "I mostly just got frustrated and kicked it." Despite the tension, a few team members made sounds that might have been laughs. Even Vexithor's mandibles twitched in what might have been a smile. "Well," Vexithor said, "we are through the door. Shall we see what we came for?" The team entered the vault carefully. Doyen stayed near the back, still worried he might get in trouble. But Hyejin grabbed his arm and pulled him forward. "You opened it," she said. "You should see it first." The inside of the vault was enormous. The golden light came from strips along the walls and ceiling. The room they entered was the size of a football field, and Doyen could see at least 3 other doorways leading deeper into the mountain. In the center of the room stood a pedestal with a holographic display floating above it. The display showed text in multiple languages rotating slowly. "It is an index," Hyejin said, studying the display, like a library catalog. "The vault contains thousands of chambers, each storing different types of knowledge." "What kinds of knowledge?" Taman asked. Hyejin scrolled through the display. "Technology, medicine, history, philosophy, art. Everything the first civilization learned during their existence. How do we access it?" Vexthor asked. "There are instructions here. We must complete trials. Each trial grants access to deeper levels of the vault." Hyejin paused. "It says the trials are designed to test worthiness. Only species that demonstrate proper qualities may inherit this knowledge." "We just completed the first trial by opening the door," Kiltara observed. "What is the second trial?" The holographic display changed, showing a doorway across the room. Above it, words appeared in the common galactic language. "Trial 2, know when to stop." The team approached the doorway cautiously. Beyond it was a smaller room containing what looked like a massive computer system. The walls were covered in screens showing scrolling equations and data. In the center stood a console with a single question displayed: "Calculate the optimal solution." Below the question was the most complicated mathematical equation Doyen had ever seen. It filled 3 screens and used symbols he did not recognize. "Fascinating," Kiltara said, floating closer. "This is an optimization problem. It is asking us to find the best possible solution given infinite variables." "Can you solve it?" Vexthor asked. "Given enough time, yes. Perhaps 6 or 7 months of calculation." "We do not have 6 months," Vexthor reminded her. "We have less than 2 months of supplies." The team gathered around the console. The scientists began discussing approaches. They argued about algorithms and computational methods. They debated whether they should split into groups or work together. Doyen watched for an hour. Then he walked up to the console, found the power cable, and unplugged it. The screens went dark. The equation disappeared. Everyone stared at him in shock. "What did you do?" Vexthor demanded. "I solved it," Doyen said. "You cannot solve an equation by turning it off." "Why not?" Doyen asked. The question was know when to stop. It is an optimization problem with infinite variables. That means there is no perfect solution. You could calculate forever and never find it. So the right answer is to not play the game. There was silence. Then the doorway on the far side of the room began to glow. A voice, ancient and powerful, spoke from hidden speakers. Correct. Trial 2 complete. Beyond the doorway, they could see another chamber filled with shelves of data storage devices. Vexthor turned slowly to look at Doyen. You are either the luckiest being in the galaxy, Vexthor said, or you understand the first civilization better than scholars who have studied them for centuries. Maybe both, Hyejin said with a small smile. They explored the newly opened chamber. It contained technical specifications for advanced technologies, power systems, medical devices, construction techniques. The team began cataloging everything eagerly, but Doyen noticed another doorway at the far end. Above it, Trial 3, Courage over Fear. This chamber contained a narrow bridge made of glass. The bridge stretched across what looked like a bottomless pit. The pit was so deep and dark that their lights could not reach the bottom. Warning signs in multiple languages lined the entrance. Fragile, maximum weight, 5 kilograms. Proceed with extreme caution. 5 kilograms, Taman said, reading the signs. That is less than the weight of a small child. None of us can cross. The team members discussed sending a drone across or building a bypass or finding another route. But Doyen was studying the bridge carefully. He knelt down and looked at the support structure underneath. These supports are made of reinforced steel, he said. But the sign says... The sign is lying, Doyen interrupted. He stood up, took a deep breath, and stepped onto the bridge. Doyen, no, Hyejin screamed, but Doyen kept walking. The glass held his weight easily. He walked to the middle of the bridge, then jumped up and down. The bridge did not even vibrate. It is a test of courage, he called back. The signs are meant to scare you, but the bridge is solid. You just have to trust yourself and ignore the fear. One by one, the team members crossed the bridge. When they all reached the other side, the ancient voice spoke again. Correct. Trial 3 complete. You are learning. They found themselves in a chamber filled with historical records. But before anyone could begin studying them, alarms suddenly blared throughout the vault. What now? Doyen asked. Taman was looking at his scanner. His face went pale. We have incoming. A ship just entered orbit. The supply ship? Hyejin asked hopefully. No, Taman said. The ship configuration? It is military. And it is Drethkai. Everyone in the chamber went silent. The Drethkai were known across the galaxy as warriors and conquerors. They did not explore or study. They took what they wanted. They must have been monitoring our communications, Vexthor said. They waited for us to open the vault, and now they are coming to steal what we found. How long until they land? Hyejin asked. 15 minutes, Taman said. Doyen looked around at the team. He saw scientists and scholars, not soldiers. He saw people who spent their lives reading and thinking, not fighting. We need to hide, he said. Now, where? Kiltara asked. The vault has many chambers, but they will find us eventually. Doyen smiled, but it was not a happy smile. Then we make sure they take a long time to find us. And while they are looking, we find something in this vault that can help us fight back. We are not warriors, Vexthor said. No, Doyen agreed. But I used to be, and I'm about to teach you the most important lesson humans know about survival. What lesson? Hyejin asked. When someone bigger and stronger comes to take what is yours, Doyen said, you do not fight them head-on. You make them regret ever starting the fight in the first place. The team scattered into the deeper chambers as the sound of landing engines echoed from outside the vault. The Drethkai had arrived, and the real test was about to begin. The Drethkai soldiers entered the vault like a wave of armored death. There were 20 of them, each standing over 2 meters tall, covered in black combat armor that made them look like machines instead of living creatures. They moved in perfect formation, weapons ready, scanning every shadow. Leading them was War Master Kryn. He was bigger than the others, with scars crossing his face and eyes that were cold as ice. He looked at the open door and laughed. So the scholars finally figured it out. How convenient. They did all the work, and now we take all the rewards. From their hiding spot in a side chamber, Doyen watched through a crack in the wall. Beside him, Hyejin was barely breathing. The rest of the team was scattered throughout the vault, hiding in different chambers, trying to stay quiet. They will find us, Bexthor whispered through the radio. He was hiding 3 chambers away. We are not trained for this. Then we do not let them search properly, Doyen whispered back. Minho, Jiwon, are you in position? Ready, came Minho's voice. He was another human on the team, the security officer. Before becoming a researcher's guard, he had been in the military like Doyen. He was younger, only 28, but he knew how to handle a weapon. Ready, Jiwon confirmed. She was the team's pilot, 31 years old, and she had served in the Space Navy. She was small but tough, the kind of person who never quit no matter what. Good, Doyen said. Remember the plan. We are not trying to win a fight. We are trying to make them angry and sloppy. Understood? Understood, both humans replied. In the main chamber, Kryn was examining the holographic display. Trials, he read aloud. The first civilization wants to test worthiness. How quaint. He turned to his soldiers. Search every chamber. Kill anyone who resists. Capture anyone who looks useful. The human engineer especially. I hear he has a talent for opening doors. The Drethkai spread out. 3 soldiers headed toward the chamber where Doyen was hiding. He signaled to Hyejin to stay quiet and pressed himself against the wall. The soldiers entered, their weapons sweeping the room. They were looking for people, so they focused on the obvious hiding spots. Behind pillars, under tables, in corners. They did not look up. Doyen had learned from his military days that people rarely look up. He had climbed into the ceiling spaces where pipes and support beams created shadows. He hung there silently as the soldiers searched below him. Nothing here, one soldier reported. Move to the next chamber, another ordered. As soon as they left, Doyen dropped down silently. Hyejin emerged from where she had hidden inside a storage container. That was too close, she whispered. It's going to get closer, Doyen said. Come on, phase 2. While the Drethkai searched the obvious rooms, Doyen led Hyejin deeper into the vault. They found Minho and Jiwon waiting in a chamber filled with what looked like old machinery. Did you find it? Doyen asked. Found it, Jiwon confirmed. She held up a small device that looked like a remote control. Power junction controls for this section. Just like you thought, the first civilization built separate power systems for each chamber. Good. When I give the signal, cut power to sections 3, 5, and 7, then restore it after 10 seconds. Keep doing that randomly. That will confuse them, Minho said with a grim smile. That's the idea. Now, did you finish the other part? Minho patted his bag. All their weapons are marked. They will not notice until they try to use them. You marked their weapons? Hyejin asked. How? Doyen smiled. During their landing, while they were getting organized, Minho and I snuck near their ship. We could not sabotage it completely, but we managed to apply a conductive paste to their energy weapon charge packs. When they fire, the weapons will work. The first time. Second time, maybe. Third time, they will overheat and lock up. That's brilliant, Hyejin said. That's survival, Doyen corrected. Now hide. They're coming. They scattered again. Minutes. Later, 4 Drethkai soldiers entered the machinery chamber. They spread out, searching carefully. One of them was examining a console when suddenly all the lights went out. Darkness. Complete and total. What? The soldier started to say. Then the lights came back on. The soldiers looked around, confused. Their helmet sensors had not detected any power failure. Everything seemed normal. Then the lights went out again. This time when they came back on, the soldiers found a message written on the wall in luminescent paint. You are not worthy. It is a trick, one soldier said, but Doyen could hear the uncertainty in his voice. The lights went out again. When they came back on, another message had appeared. The vault rejects you. Spread out, the squad leader ordered. Find whoever is doing this. But in the darkness, with lights cutting out randomly, the soldiers could not coordinate. They kept bumping into each other. They fired their weapons at shadows that turned out to be their teammates. In the main chamber, Kryn was getting reports from all his squads. Power failures in multiple sections, one reported. Strange messages appearing, reported another. We keep hearing footsteps, but when we investigate, no one is there, said a third. It is the scholars trying to scare us, Kryn said dismissively. They are not soldiers. Find them and bring them to me. But as hours passed, things got worse. Soldiers reported their weapons malfunctioning. They found traps that had not been there before, loose floor panels, rerouted steam pipes, chambers that locked from the outside. None of the traps were deadly, but they slowed the search, and through it all, they kept finding messages. Leave. Not yours. You failed the test. Kryn assembled his remaining soldiers in the main chamber. Out of 20 who had entered, only 12 were still mobile. 8 were trapped in various chambers, or had weapon malfunctions or minor injuries. Enough games, Kryn announced. I know you can hear me, scholars. Come out now or I will start destroying the vault. I will burn these chambers one by one until you have nothing left to protect. Silence answered him. Kryn nodded to one of his soldiers who aimed a heavy plasma weapon at the nearest wall of storage devices. His finger touched the trigger. Wait, a voice called out. Doyen emerged from a side chamber, his hands raised. Do not destroy anything. We will cooperate. Kryn smiled. The human engineer. Excellent. Come here. Doyen walked forward slowly. One by one, other team members emerged from hiding. Hyejin, Taemin, Minho, Jiwon. The non-human team members as well. Vexathor with his forearms in a gesture of surrender. Kiltara dimming her light to show she was not hostile. Smart choice, Kryn said. Now you will help me access the deeper chambers. I hear there is an armory inside this vault. Weapons from the first civilization. You will open it for me. And if we refuse? Vexthor asked. Then I will kill one of you every hour until someone agrees to help, Kryn said casually. Starting with the weakest. He pointed at Hyejin. I will do it, Doyen said quickly. I opened the front door. I can open the armory. Just do not hurt anyone. Kryn studied him. You care about these people. That is a weakness, but it is also useful. Very well. Take me to the armory. Doyen led the group deeper into the vault. They passed through the chambers they had already opened, then came to a new door. Above it, words glowed. Trial 4, sacrifice what you treasure. Another test, Kryn said. How do we pass this one? I do not know yet, Doyen admitted. Then figure it out, quickly. They entered the chamber. In the center stood an altar made of dark stone. On the altar was a depression like a bowl, and holographic text floating above it. Place your most valued possession. Only through loss do we gain wisdom. A sacrifice, Kiltara said softly. The first civilization wants us to give up something precious. Kryn laughed. Easy. He grabbed Hyejin and dragged her toward the altar. I sacrifice this female. She is valuable to the human, so— No! Doyen shouted. That is not how it works. Kryn paused. Explain. The test is about humility, Doyen said quickly, his mind racing. It is not about sacrificing others. It is about sacrificing something of your own, something that has value to you personally. I value nothing, Kryn said coldly. Then you cannot pass the test, Vexthor said. The first civilization designed these trials to filter out those who are unworthy. They do not want conquerors. They want learners. Kryn's face twisted with rage. Then one of you will pass it for me. He pointed his weapon at Doyen. You. Place something on that altar. Now. Doyen reached into his pocket slowly. He pulled out a small metal box, battered and worn. Inside was a set of precision tools, wrenches, screwdrivers, calibrators. They had belonged to his father, who had been an engineer before him. His father had died when Doyen was young, and these tools were the only thing he had left of him. Doyen had carried these tools through military service, through every job, through every world. They were not fancy or high-tech, but they were his connection to his past, to his father's memory. He placed the box on the altar. The tools began to glow. Then they dissolved into light and vanished. The altar shimmered and a doorway appeared in the wall that had not been there before. Trial 4. Complete, the ancient voice said. You understand the value of humility? Doyen stared at the empty altar. His tools were gone. His father's tools. But his team was safe, and that was what mattered. Kryn pushed past him. Finally, let us see what weapons await. They entered the new chamber, but instead of weapons they found shelves. Thousands of shelves filled with data storage devices and books and scrolls. In the center stood a pedestal with a holographic projection showing scientific formulas, historical records, philosophical texts. Knowledge, Hyejin whispered. The armory is not weapons. It is knowledge. Kryn stared in disbelief. Where are the weapons? Where are the tools of power? Knowledge is power, Vexthor said. The first civilization understood this. They did not need physical weapons because they had advanced so far beyond violence. Useless, Kryn roared. All of this is useless. He turned to his soldiers. Burn it all. And execute the prisoners. They have wasted my time. The soldiers raised their weapons. Doyen looked at Hyejin, at Minho, at Jiwon. They all nodded slightly. They had discussed this possibility. They had prepared. Now, Doyen said quietly into his radio. All the lights in the vault went out, and in the darkness the humans moved. The darkness in the vault was absolute. The Drethkai had night vision in their helmets, but Jiwon had prepared for that. Before the prisoners were captured, she had hacked into the vault's environmental systems. Now, with one command, she flooded the chamber with a specific wavelength of infrared, light that overloaded Drethkai optical sensors. The soldiers were blind, the humans were not. Doyen had spent 6 months on a night patrol on the moon Europa, where visibility was zero, and you learned to move by sound, touch, and memory. He had trained Minho and Jiwon in those same techniques during their military service, together. And they had spent the last 3 hours mapping every centimeter of these chambers. Weapons malfunction in 3, 2, 1, Minho whispered. Right on schedule, the Drethkai soldiers tried to fire. Their weapons sparked, overheated, and locked up. The conductive paste that Minho had applied earlier had finally done its job after multiple uses. What? A soldier started to say. Doyun hit him from behind, using a piece of pipe he had found earlier. The soldier's helmet rang like a bell and he collapsed. Doyen dragged him into a side alcove and took his sidearm, a simple projectile pistol that had not been sabotaged. Across the chamber, Minho and Jiwon were doing the same. They moved like ghosts, striking quickly and vanishing before the Drethkai could react. Defensive formation, Kryn ordered. But his soldiers could not see to form up properly. They clustered together, weapons useless, trying to orient themselves. Hyejin now, Doyen called. Hyejin had been studying the first civilization's control systems. She touched a panel on the wall and spoke in their ancient language, words she had learned from the inscriptions. Protect the worthy, remove the unworthy. The vault responded. Hidden panels in the walls slid open. Ancient security systems dormant for 50,000 years activated. Nets made of energy fields dropped from the ceiling, trapping 4 Drethkai soldiers. Doors slammed shut, separating the Drethkai forces. Floor panels shifted, sending 3 more soldiers tumbling into holding cells below. The vault is alive, one soldier screamed. It is just a security system, Kryn roared. Stop panicking! But the vault was more than a security system. It was an intelligence designed by the first civilization to protect their knowledge. And it had been watching since the moment the Drethkai entered with hostile intent. Now it was judging them. Gravity in certain sections increased, pinning soldiers to the floor. Oxygen levels dropped just enough to make them drowsy. Doors appeared where none had existed, leading the Drethkai soldiers into mazes. Fall back, Kryn ordered. Back to the entrance. The remaining soldiers tried to retreat, but the vault had changed. The path they had used to enter was no longer there. Instead, they found themselves in a circular chamber with no exits. Trap, Minho observed. He was watching from a hidden observation room above. Kryn realized it too. You think you have won, human? He called out. I still have hostages. You have nothing, Doyen said. He stepped into view on a balcony overlooking the chamber. The lights came back on, dimmed but functional. Your weapons do not work. Your soldiers are scattered, and the vault itself is against you. Kryn looked up at him with pure hatred. Then I will kill you with my bare hands. You can try, Doyen said. But first I want you to understand something. You came here thinking strength was what mattered. You thought the first civilization's trials were obstacles to overcome with force. Strength is all that matters, Kryn spat. No, Vexthor said, emerging from another doorway. Wisdom matters. Humility matters. The first civilization was testing for these qualities. You failed every trial. You tried to sacrifice others instead of yourself. You valued weapons over knowledge. You saw cooperation as weakness. Philosophical nonsense, Kryn said. Maybe, Doyen agreed, but here's some practical knowledge for you. You are standing in Trial 5. Kryn looked around the circular chamber. He saw the altar in the center, the holographic text appearing above it. Trial 5, Wisdom over Power, choose. 2 doorways appeared in opposite walls. Above one door, Power. Above the other, Wisdom. Choose wisely, Hyejin called down. The wrong choice will trap you in that chamber forever. Kryn laughed. An easy choice. He strode toward the door marked Power. Wait, one of his soldiers said. It might be a trick. The other trials were designed for weak scholars, Kryn interrupted. I am a warrior. Power is my path. He reached for the door. The moment he touched it, energy fields sprang up around him. The door sealed shut. The entire chamber became a prison with Kryn trapped inside a cage of light. Wrong choice, Doyen said quietly. No, Kryn roared, throwing himself against the energy field. But it held firm. Let me out! Let me out! The vault will release you, Vexthor said. In about 50,000 years, when your species has learned humility. Or you can choose the other door. Kryn stared at the door marked Wisdom, his face twisted with anger and shame. Finally, he turned away from the Power door and walked to the Wisdom door. The energy fields vanished. The door opened. Beyond it was not a treasure room or armory, but a small chamber with a single chair and a data terminal. Sit, the ancient voice commanded. Learn. When you understand why you failed, you may leave. Kryn had no choice. His soldiers were trapped or scattered throughout the vault. His weapons did not work. The vault itself opposed him. He sat down heavily, defeated not by force but by his own choices. The remaining Drethkai soldiers, seeing their leader captured, surrendered. Minho and Jiwan collected their weapons and secured them in holding chambers that the vault provided. Hours later, after everything was secured, the team gathered in the main chamber. They were exhausted, bruised, and shaken. But they were alive. That was terrifying, Taman said. He was the youngest member of the team and had spent the entire fight hiding in a storage container. That was necessary, Minho corrected. How did you know the vault would help us? Kiltara asked Hyejin. I did not know for certain, Hyejin admitted. But the inscriptions kept mentioning that the vault would protect those who were worthy. The Drethkai came with violence and greed. We came with respect and curiosity. I gambled that the vault could tell the difference. A dangerous gamble, Vexthor said. But he was looking at Hyejin with new respect. But it worked. You have learned to think like the first civilization. She learned from watching Doyen, Jiwan said with a tired smile. He kept talking about how the vault was designed by engineers. And engineers do not build security systems that cannot tell friends from enemies. Everyone looked at Doyen. He was sitting against a wall, staring at the altar where his father's tools had vanished. Hyejin sat down beside him. I am sorry about your tools. Me too, Doyen said quietly. But they were just objects. You are all alive. That is what matters. Spoken like someone who passed the trial, Vexthor said. You understood sacrifice better than I would have. I am 400 years old, but I do not think I could have given up my research notes. Maybe that is the difference between humans and older species, Kiltara mused. You have less history, so you hold on to it less tightly. You can let go when necessary. Or maybe we are just practical, Minho said. Humans know that surviving today is more important than preserving yesterday. A sound echoed through the vault. A chime, clear and pure. The holographic display in the main chamber changed, showing new text. 5 trials complete. Vault access granted. Knowledge is yours to share. We did it, Taman whispered.
We actually did it, but Doyen noticed something.
Wait, it says share, not keep. Why? Hyejin read the full message aloud. The knowledge of the first civilization belongs to all who prove worthy. It must be shared with others who demonstrate the same qualities. Wisdom hoarded is wisdom lost. So we cannot keep this for ourselves, Vexthor said slowly. The first civilization wants us to teach others. That makes sense, Jiwan said. If they wanted to preserve knowledge for 50,000 years, they would not want it locked away forever. They would want it spread, shared, built upon. The sound of engines made them all look up. Through the vault entrance, they could see lights in the sky. Ships were landing. The Galactic Council, Minho said, checking his scanner. Someone must have picked up the distress signals from the fight. Or they detected the vault opening, Vexathor said. Either way, we are about to have company. The team rushed to clean themselves up and prepare. An hour later, representatives from 12 different species entered the vault. They were led by Council Director Minsu, a human diplomat known for his fairness. We received multiple emergency signals, Minsu said, looking around at the damage. The captured Drethkai, the open chambers. What exactly happened here? Vexathor stepped forward. We completed the trials of the first civilization. We gained access to their knowledge vault, and we defended it from hostile forces. The Drethkai attacked you? They tried to steal the knowledge, Doyen said. We stopped them. Minsu looked at Doyen with interest. You are the engineer who opened the front door, correct? I read the initial reports. You kicked it? Yes, sir. Brilliant, Minsu said. Absolutely brilliant. 50,000 years of failure ended by a single kick. The Council has been debating how to handle this vault for decades. We could never agree on who should have access. The first civilization already decided, Hyejin said. She explained the trial system, the tests of worthiness, the requirement to share knowledge. Minsu listened carefully. So anyone who passes the trials can access the knowledge? Any species? Correct, Vexathor confirmed. The trials test for qualities, not species. Humility, wisdom, courage, sacrifice, these are universal values. And humans passed all 5 trials, Minsu observed. With help from our teammates, Doyen said quickly. This was not just humans. This was cooperation. But you led the way, Kiltara said. Your perspective was essential. Minsu smiled. The Council will want a full report, but based on what I see here, I believe the vault should remain open. Any species that wishes to learn from the first civilization should be allowed to take the trials. And what about the Drethkai? Minho asked, gesturing to where Kryn was still trapped in the learning chamber. They attacked a peaceful research mission, Minsu said coldly. They will face council justice, but... He paused. If War Master Kryn completes his lesson and passes the trial, then he too will be allowed to learn. That is what the first civilization would have wanted. In his prison of light, Kryn heard these words. He sat before the terminal, forced to read lesson after lesson about humility, cooperation, and wisdom. He hated every word. But slowly, very slowly, he began to understand. Outside, as the sun rose over Kelthera 9, Doyen stood at the vault entrance looking at the dawn. Hyejin joined him. What are you thinking? She asked. I am thinking about my father, Doyen said. He always told me, the simplest solution is usually the right one. I thought he meant engineering, but maybe he meant life. The first civilization learned that lesson, Hyejin said. After millions of years of existence, after all their technology and knowledge, they built a vault that tested for simple virtues. Maybe that is the ultimate wisdom, remembering what is truly important. Maybe, Doyen said. He smiled. Or maybe they just got tired of complicated problems. Hyejin laughed. Very human thinking. Is that a compliment? Yes, Hyejin said. Yes, it is. 6 months later, Doyen stood in front of 200 students at the Human Engineering Academy on Earth. He felt uncomfortable. He was used to building things, fixing things, not talking about them. But Director Minsu had insisted that Doyen's story needed to be told. So that is what happened. Doyen concluded his lecture. I kicked the door, it opened. We learned that sometimes the simplest answer is the right answer. A hand went up in the audience. But how did you know the simple answer would work? A young student asked. Doyen thought about this. I did not know. Not for certain, but I knew that spending 400 years on a problem that might have a simple solution was definitely wrong. Sometimes you have to take a risk. But what if you had been wrong? What if the door had collapsed? Then I would have been wrong, Doyen said simply. But I believed the first civilization was smarter than that. I believed they would not build a door that destroyed everything if someone tried the wrong approach. And I was right, they built a test, not a trap. Another student raised their hand. Do you think humans are special? Better than other species? No, Doyen said firmly. We are not better. We are just different. Other species have thousands of years of wisdom and knowledge. We have youth and fresh perspectives. Both are valuable. The key is learning from each other. The lecture ended with applause. Afterward, Doyen escaped to the Academy's engineering workshop. This was where he felt comfortable, surrounded by tools, machines, and problems that could be solved with his hands. He was working on a new drill design when someone entered. "'Twas Hyegen, hiding from your fame?" she asked with a smile. "Fame is exhausting," Doyen said. "Give me a broken engine any day. Too bad. You are famous now. The human who kicked down history's door, they are writing books about you." Doyen groaned. "Please tell me you are joking." "I am not. 3 books so far, and 2 movies in development. You are a celebrity. I just kicked a door." "You did more than that," Hyegen said seriously. "You changed how the galaxy thinks about humanity. For thousands of years, older species looked at us as children, too young, too reckless, too simple. Now they see us as valuable partners. They understand that sometimes experience can blind you and youth can see clearly." "What about you?" Doyen asked. "You are the one who figured out how to talk to the vault. You saved us all." "We saved each other," Hyegen corrected. "That is the real lesson. Not that humans are special, but that cooperation works. Different perspectives together are stronger than any one perspective alone." She handed him a data pad. "The council asked me to give you this. It is an official invitation." Doyen read the document. His eyes widened. "They want me to lead a new division?" "The Human Intuition Institute. You would train teams to approach problems with fresh thinking. You would work with other species to combine their knowledge with human, let us call it directness." "I am not a teacher," Doyen said. "You taught the galaxy that a 50,000-year-old problem could be solved in one kick. I think you are an excellent teacher." Doyen looked at the invitation for a long time. Finally, he shook his head. "No, give it to someone else." "Give it to you, me?" "You are the one who learned the first civilization's language. You are the one who understood their philosophy. You are the one who can bridge the gap between human thinking and alien wisdom. I am just an engineer who got lucky." Hyegen studied his face. "You really believe that, do you not? You really think it was just luck, was it not?" "No," Hyegen said. "It was insight. It was courage. It was the willingness to question authority and try something everyone else said was impossible. That is not luck. That is talent." "If you say so," Doyen said, but he smiled. 3 months later, the Human Intuition Institute opened with Hyegen as its director and Doyen as its chief consultant. The Institute's mission was to train mixed species teams to approach unsolvable problems with combined perspectives. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, something remarkable was happening. Other first civilization sites were being discovered, and they were being opened. On planet Thresh 7, a team found a sealed laboratory that had stumped researchers for 30 years. A human geologist named Sunwoo looked at it and said, "Have you tried just opening it normally?" She pulled a simple latch hidden in plain sight. The laboratory opened. On Station Krell Prime, an ancient computer system had been locked for decades. A human programmer named Yuna studied it for an hour, then unplugged it and plugged it back in. The system rebooted and unlocked. On Moon Garthan 3, a massive barrier blocked access to a repository of medical knowledge. A human doctor named Junho examined it and realized it was not locked at all. It was just very heavy. He organized a team to push it. It slid open easily. Each success was small. Each success was simple. But together they represented a shift in how the galaxy approached ancient problems. The older species began to understand. They had been making problems more complicated than they needed to be. They had been adding layers of complexity out of habit, out of tradition, out of the assumption that ancient meant difficult. Sometimes ancient just meant old. At the original vault on Kelthera 9, Vexthor continued his research. But now he had human assistants who asked annoying questions like, "But why? And have you tried the obvious approach? And what if everyone has been wrong for 50,000 years?" At first, Vexthor found these questions frustrating, but slowly he learned to appreciate them. His research accelerated. He made discoveries in months that would have taken decades before. One day, while working late, a young human assistant named Boram asked him a question. "Sir, why did the first civilization disappear? If they were so advanced, where did they go?" Vexthor had been studying this question for his entire 400-year life. He had developed complex theories about dimensional transcendence, artificial ascension, catastrophic warfare. But now, looking at Boram's simple, honest question, a new thought occurred to him. Perhaps they did not disappear, Vexthor said slowly. Perhaps they just moved on. They learned everything they needed to learn, built everything they needed to build, and simply left. Not because of tragedy or danger, but because they were done. That is a sad thought, Borum said. Or a hopeful one, Vexthor replied. It means there is an end to the journey. A point where you can say, I have learned enough. I have done enough. I can rest now. Do you think we will reach that point? Vexthor looked around at the vault, at the knowledge accumulated over millions of years, at the trials designed to test wisdom rather than intelligence. Perhaps, he said, but not by accumulating knowledge forever, by understanding what knowledge truly matters. Back on Earth in the engineering workshop, Doyen was teaching a class of mixed-species students. There were humans, of course, but also young members of Vexthor's species, energy beings like Kiltara, and a dozen other types of sentient life. Today's lesson, Doyen said, is about the door problem. You are presented with a locked door. You have no key. How do you open it? The students called out answers. Hack the electronic lock. Find the key. Study the mechanism. Calculate the code. Doyen let them brainstorm for a while. Then he said, all good answers. Now here is a better question. Are you sure it is locked? Silence. The door on Kelthera 9 was not locked, Doyen continued. It was designed to look locked. The 1,000 keyholes were a distraction. The real mechanism was simple. Before you spend years solving a complicated problem, always check, is the problem actually complicated? Or have we just assumed it is? A student raised a tentacle. It was a young Aquilian named Sheltara. But how do we know when to question assumptions? How do we know when something is truly complex versus falsely complex? Good question, Doyen said. The answer is you test. You try the simple approach first. If it does not work, then you try the complex approach. But most species do the opposite. They assume complexity and never try simplicity. Because we are afraid of looking stupid, another human student said. Her name was Yunji. Exactly, Doyen agreed. Fear of looking stupid keeps us from trying obvious solutions. But looking stupid for a moment is better than wasting years on the wrong approach. An older student, a Keltheran researcher, spoke up. But your success was unique. Not every problem has a simple solution. Sometimes complex problems require complex answers. True, Doyen acknowledged. I am not saying all problems are simple. I am saying we should always check before assuming. And more importantly, we should combine approaches. Use your species' deep knowledge and patience with human directness and willingness to experiment. Together, we are stronger than apart. The class continued with students from different species sharing their approaches to problem solving. Doyen noticed how they learned from each other. The older species taught patience and careful analysis. The younger humans taught rapid prototyping and questioning authority. The energy beings taught multidimensional thinking. The aquatic species taught fluid adaptation. When class ended, Doyen stepped outside. The sun was setting over the academy campus. He thought about how much had changed in less than a year. Hyejin found him there. Thinking deep thoughts? She asked. Thinking about my father, Doyen said. He would have loved this. Different species working together, learning from each other. He would be proud of you. Maybe. Though I still feel like I just got lucky. Will you ever accept that you did something remarkable? Doyen shrugged. I opened a door. Lots of people can open doors. Not doors that defeated everyone for 50,000 years, Hyejin pointed out. Only because everyone made it too complicated. Hyejin laughed. You are impossible. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the sunset. Finally, Hyejin said, the council wants to send another expedition. There is a first civilization structure on planet Thandor 8. Very mysterious, very complicated. They want you to consult. When do we leave? We? You do not think I am going alone, do you? I need someone to translate when I accidentally insult everyone. Hyejin smiled. 2 weeks. Bring your tools. I do not have my old tools anymore, Doyen said quietly. Remember, I sacrificed them. I know, Hyejin said. But look. She handed him a small box. Doyen opened it. Inside was a set of precision tools. Wrenches, screwdrivers, calibrators. They were not his father's tools. But they were the same type, the same quality. The first civilization's knowledge included advanced manufacturing, Hyejin explained. I used their designs to have these made. They are not the originals, but they are perfect, Doyen interrupted. His voice was rough. Thank you. You gave up your treasured possession to save us. The least I could do was help you replace it." Doyen looked at the tools, then at Heejin, then at the academy behind them where dozens of species were learning to work together. "You know," he said, "maybe I am starting to understand what the first civilization was trying to teach." "What is that?" "That holding on to the past too tightly stops you from moving forward. But remembering the past gives you strength for the journey. The trick is finding the balance." "Very wise," Heejin said. "You are learning." "Slowly," Doyen admitted. "Very slowly." Years passed. The Human Intuition Institute grew. More first civilization sites were opened. More species learned to question their assumptions and try simple solutions. More teams combined different perspectives. The galaxy changed. Not quickly, not dramatically, but steadily, like water wearing down stone. Younger species were given more respect. Older species learned humility. Everyone discovered that wisdom came not from age or youth, but from the willingness to learn and adapt. And on Earth, in a small classroom, Doyen continued to teach. His students came from across the galaxy. They learned engineering, yes, but more importantly, they learned to think differently, to question, to experiment, to combine their unique perspectives with others. One day, a student asked the same question that Borum had asked. "Teacher, why did the first civilization disappear?" Doyen smiled. He had heard Vexthor's answer and found it unsatisfying, so he had come up with his own. "Maybe they did not disappear," Doyen said. "Maybe they are still here, scattered across the galaxy, waiting in their vaults and repositories, not as people but as lessons. They left behind tests because they knew that their greatest gift was not technology or knowledge. It was the wisdom to know when to let go of complexity and embrace simplicity." "That is a beautiful thought," the student said. "Or maybe," Doyen added with a grin, "they just got bored and moved to another galaxy. Who knows? The point is not why they left. The point is what they left behind, and what we choose to do with it." The class laughed. That was another thing Doyen had taught them, that you could be wise and still have a sense of humor. That serious problems did not always require serious faces. After class, Doyen walked home through the busy streets. He saw humans and aliens working together, playing together, living together. He saw restaurants serving food from a dozen different worlds. He saw children of different species attending school together. The galaxy had not become perfect. There were still conflicts, still misunderstandings, still prejudices, but there was progress. Steady, undeniable progress, and it had started with a single kick. Doyen reached his apartment and found a message waiting. It was from Vexthor. The old scholar was 415 years old now, but he sounded excited. "Doyen, we found something new in the vault. Beneath the lowest level, there is another chamber. The inscription says, 'Final Trial. Teach what you have learned.' I think the first civilization wants us to become teachers ourselves, to spread their lessons to others. Would you like to help design the curriculum? I could use your particular perspective." Doyen smiled. 3 years ago, Vexthor would never have asked for his help. Now they were partners. He recorded a reply. "I will be there next month. But let me guess. The entrance to this new chamber is just a simple door, and everyone has been trying to unlock it for weeks when they should just push?" Vexthor's response came quickly. "Actually, yes, how did you know?" "Because," Doyen said, "the first civilization had a sense of humor. They kept testing the same lesson in different ways. When will we learn that sometimes a door is just a door?" He ended the message and looked out his window at the earth below, at the stars above. Somewhere out there, maybe the first civilization was watching. Maybe they were pleased that someone finally understood their lessons, or maybe they were just doors. And the lessons were whatever people chose to learn from them. Either way, Doyen knew one thing for certain. The galaxy had changed because someone had been willing to try the simple solution. To take a risk, to kick a door and see what happened, and that was a very human thing to do. The next morning, Doyen received one more message. This one was from a young human engineer named Soyeon, working on a remote colony. She had just opened a sealed first civilization facility using a method so simple it had taken her only 5 minutes. "Everyone thought I was crazy," she wrote. "They said I was disrespecting ancient technology, but I remembered your lecture about the door. I remembered that sometimes the simplest answer is the right answer. Thank you for teaching me to think differently." Doyen saved the message. Then he went to his workshop, picked up his tools, the ones Hye-jin had given him, and got to work. There were always more doors to open, more problems to solve, more assumptions to question. And as long as there were humans willing to try, willing to risk looking stupid, willing to kick when everyone else was still trying to find the key, those doors would keep opening, one simple solution at a time.